Welcome back, everyone, to Weather for Weather Geeks in the middle of this hot June stretch, although temperatures underachieved a little bit today, and we'll tell you why in this video. At the airport, we officially made it to 87 today, which means we will be not talking about an official heat wave just yet, because we had 2 straight days of 90-plus temperatures, Monday and Tuesday, but since we fell short of 90 today, we'll have to start over on Thursday. Now, I do think that 3 straight days with highs in the 90s looking pretty likely. Thursday, Friday, into Saturday, maybe even Sunday as well. But today we fell just short, and the reason for that, the clouds, and we'll show you the satellite picture, but I'll tell you, while the heat was not as much of a story as expected today, it is air you can wear, instant sweat kind of weather out there this evening with dew points in the lower 70s. Look at that dew point in Newcastle. That looks a little artificially high to me. 79 degrees, that would be pretty crazy. And that number does kind of stick out when you look at other readings across the region. But either way, it is very, very muggy. Now, we've had some clouds that have streamed in since this morning that kind of muted the warm-up a little bit today. Where we had more appreciable sunshine, it still got very hot out towards Cleveland, but this corridor of clouds was kind of lined up and aimed right at us. And what that meant, a couple of things. A, it didn't get as warm as we thought today. And B, we didn't reach what we call our convective temperature. That's the temperature at which air parcels are free to just keep on rising through the atmosphere and form thunderstorms, kind of in the absence of a trigger, a front of any kind. When you reach that convective temperature, you can get thunderstorms even in the absence of a front or any sort of, mechanism like that. We've seen that the last couple of days. It reaches a certain temperature, and boom, the thunderstorms go up, and we just didn't reach that temperature today. For some, that is good news because we have some storm-weary residents in parts of our area, especially maybe around Hubbard and over towards the Newcastle area where there was a heavy thunderstorm last evening. But in other places, it's been pretty dry of late. We could really use some rain, but I don't think we're going to see any tonight. We've pretty much dismissed any chances of shower and thunderstorm activity from our forecast at this point for the rest of the evening. We've had some storms out towards Toledo, but even those have kind of underachieved a little bit for the most part because of the lack of full sunshine this afternoon. In the meantime, the tropics are coming to life, and this is expected to be a gangbuster season for tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin because the waters in the Atlantic are so warm, and also we have La Nina coming on in the Pacific, and La Nina tends to not cause a lot of wind shear in the Atlantic. Wind shear tears apart tropical systems. When we have El Nino, that increases wind shear typically in the Atlantic, but La Nina is kind of the opposite thing. So it's a recipe for a very active season, and Alberto, our first named storm of the system, will make landfall tonight into tomorrow morning across parts of Mexico. Now, this is the Yucatan Peninsula over here. This is where Cancun is, right over here. So this brought some inclement weather to some really touristy areas in that part of Mexico, but the center of Alberto is well to the north and west at this point of the Cancun area, and again, making landfall overnight tonight. In the northern hemisphere, summer officially begins, astronomical summer, on Thursday. Now, when it comes to the weather and meteorology and climatology, we consider summer to be the months of June, July, and August. But astronomically speaking, the exact time in which the sun's most direct rays are over the Tropic of Cancer in the northern hemisphere, and the sun is as high in the sky as it ever gets around here, that'll be at 4:51 p.m. on Thursday. By the way, this is the earliest beginning of summer since the late 1700s. Now, summer can either begin on the 20th, the 21st, or very rarely the 22nd. It's not uncommon for summer to begin officially on the 20th, but it usually is later in the evening. This 4:51 time is the earliest since the late 1700s. A little bit of trivia for you to impress your friends. Our sunrise will be at 5:50, sunset at 8:58 on the solstice. Now, of course, the days are very long at this time of the year, and it's really something both in early morning hours and in the evening, just how long daylight is visible in our sky. Different types of twilight. Astronomical twilight is still basically nighttime. When you get towards nautical twilight, that term, it's an older term, and it has to do with people on the sea being able to finally start to see a little bit of sunlight in the morning on the distant horizon, or the last shreds of light in the sky in the evening. And for us, nautical twilight begins as early as 4:33. Now, it doesn't get light that early, but the finest, very first hints of light on the horizon occur that early in the day at this time of the year, and at 10:15 p.m. in the evening. Civil twilight is the time before and after sunrise and sunset, in which there's enough light in the sky that you can do a lot of outdoor activities without the much aid of artificial lights. So, it gets pretty bright outside, even bright enough to do a lot of outdoor activities as early as 5:15, 5:16 in the morning at this time of the year, and as late as about 9:32 in the evening. Now, we've already seen our earliest sunrises of the year. The latest sunsets will come later in June, towards the very end of the month, and the reason why that's not right on the solstice there's a couple of different reasons, but one is our latitude, the other is kind of the way we measure sunrise and sunset. And so while the absolute longest amount of daylight, or the biggest amount of daylight that we see, is on the solstice, the earliest sunrises, the latest sunsets are offset a little bit. It's the same thing in the winter in December. Our earliest sunsets occur actually before the December solstice, and the latest sunrises tend to occur in January. Actually, they oftentimes occur in early November before we have the time change. Anyway, as far as the weather is concerned tomorrow, not only will it be sunnier, I think it'll be hotter tomorrow, and we may reach our convective temperature tomorrow. We also have a front that's approaching kind of the western shores of Lake Ontario and the northern part of Lake Erie, and that'll probably be enough to lead to more organized thunderstorm activity from the Finger Lakes, Rochester, Buffalo, heading over towards Binghamton, Albany, New York. Even the far northern reaches of Pennsylvania have a pretty good chance of more organized convective activity tomorrow afternoon. I think everything will be pretty isolated this far to the west, but still, you know the drill over the last couple of days. We didn't have anything today, but Monday and Tuesday, even though the coverage may not be particularly high, it'll be kind of like those days in that anything that does get going could be pretty rowdy with some gusty winds and some downpours. So this front will never cross the area, but it'll come close enough that, again, I think there'll be more organized activity over towards Williamsport, PA, Binghamton, New York, places like that. Everything's pretty isolated around here. Same idea Friday. That front's just to our north. Instability can lead to a thunderstorm in some spots in the afternoon. And actually, I think the hottest day of the bunch is likely to be on Saturday. I think that we will see a minimal amount of thunderstorm activity Saturday afternoon. There's just not much going for us when it comes to the ability for the atmosphere to produce thunder and lightning on Saturday. And with a good deal of sun, we've got a good chance of perhaps hitting 93 to 95. So, what's a degree or two amongst friends, but the absolute hottest day of this whole stretch may end up being on Saturday. Cold front approaches Sunday with a chance of scattered showers and storms Sunday afternoon into Sunday night. A brief, and I mean 1 day brief, cool down to follow on Monday. But the beat goes on in the longer range. Now, are we going to see a lot of mid-90s in this pattern through early July? Probably not, but I think we'll be consistently above the average temperature-wise, with a lot of days in the middle and upper 80s for daytime highs, and lows in the 60s to around 70, wrapping up the month of June and heading into early July. This could end up being a pretty stormy pattern as well. Everything's been pretty hit or miss over the last few days, of course. We've had a deluge in some spots and very little, if anything, in others. We may have more region-wide good chances of thunderstorm activity in this pattern by the end of the month and the start of July. We'll talk more about the longer range in future editions of Weather for Weather Geeks. Thanks for watching on this Wednesday evening, and I will see you right back here on Thursday.